A power shift is happening right now, but it's not loud. You won't hear explosions or declarations of war. No, this shift is happening in complete silence. And that silence, it might just be the most dangerous sound in the world.
You know, the first sign a great power is in real trouble isn't a threat. It's the opposite. It's a sudden, deafening quiet. The phone just stops ringing. The calls you always thought would be answered. The requests you just assumed would be granted. Suddenly, nothing.
And then, that silence turns into action, real action. Allies, the ones who once would have given you anything, they start denying even the most basic requests. We're not talking about angry statements here. We're talking about concrete moves that are literally redrawing the lines of power on the map.
I mean, just look at this example. Donald Trump says he's ready for war with Iran, that a massive armada is on the way. And then what happens? His key partners in the region, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, publicly just slam the doors shut. They say, no, you cannot use our airspace for an attack. This isn't some quiet disagreement. This is a flat-out public rejection.
And it's not just them. While this is going on, Venezuela's Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, rejects orders from Washington. Syria's security chief, Ahmed al-Shara, gets on a plane to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. The UK's opposition leader, Keir Starmer, he lands in Beijing. You see, this doesn't look like chaos. It looks like a pattern, a kind of correction. So what's the framework here? What is the pattern that we're missing?
Well, that pattern has a name. It's called balance of power realism, and it's a concept from the political scientist John Mearsheimer. And it's a brutal but incredibly simple way to look at the world. The core idea is this: nations aren't friends. They're not driven by values or ideology. They are survival machines, and they are all operating in a constant state of fear.
Okay, so here are the rules of the game according to this theory. First, survival is everything. It is the only goal that matters. And because of that, depending on another power is a huge weakness. Second, states don't react to what you say you'll do. They react to what you can do, your actual power. And this last one is absolutely crucial. Being unpredictable, that's not a clever tactic. In this world, it is a direct threat to everyone else's survival.
And this is where we see the fundamental miscalculation. The assumption from Donald Trump is that if you create fear, if you use coercion, you get obedience. But Mearsheimer's realism says, nope, it's the exact opposite. Fear doesn't make other countries obey you. It forces them to team up against you. Coercion doesn't win you friends. It pushes them away.
So let's get this straight. The most important point is why allies are walking away. It's not because their feelings are hurt. It's not some moral outrage. They're leaving because they are terrified. They're terrified of being dragged into a war they didn't choose by a leader who treats commitments like they're disposable.
And you can see this fear-driven logic playing out everywhere. This isn't just the theory, it's happening in real time. While Donald Trump is screaming about tariffs, what does Canada's Prime Minister Carney do? He goes and forges new deals with China. While Washington demands loyalty, Britain's Keir Starmer hops on a plane to meet with Xi Jinping. The US threatens a trade war with the EU, so they turn around and lock in a huge deal with India. Every single one of these moves is a hedge. It's a survival strategy.
So what we're actually watching is not the collapse of the global order. It's something different. It's the system actively rerouting itself around a source of instability. It's like a GPS finding a new way around a massive pileup on the highway. It's a logical, cold-blooded correction designed to ensure survival when the guy at the center becomes dangerously unpredictable.
And this quiet escalation happens in 3 stages. Let's break it down. First, you get diplomatic isolation. Suddenly, Donald Trump isn't being consulted like a leader, he's being managed like a problem. Second, you see economic decoupling. Big trade deals start getting signed that very pointedly leave the US out of the picture. And third, security fragmentation. As global trust dies, regional powers just start looking out for themselves.
And of course, the money is already moving. You always follow the money, right? While the US dollar is hitting a 4-year low, German investment into China is hitting a 4-year high. You know, financial markets are the ultimate realists. They don't care about speeches. They follow stability. And right now, they are placing their bets somewhere else.
It's not just the money either. Military focus is shifting too. You have Canada and Denmark sending forces up to the Arctic and Greenland. Now why there? It's not because of some immediate threat. It's because in a world where alliances are fragile, controlling strategic sea lanes becomes everything. Meanwhile, Russia isn't picking a direct fight. It's just hosting the very leaders the US can no longer guarantee protection for.
And this quote from Mearsheimer,
This really is the key to understanding the Middle East. For countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, their biggest fear is not that the US will abandon them. Their biggest fear is being trapped by them, dragged into a catastrophic war with Iran started by an impulsive Donald Trump. That's it. That is why they said no. And honestly, can you blame them? Everyone saw what happened to the Kurds. Donald Trump's betrayal wasn't just another headline. It was a strategic lesson, and it was burned into the memory of every single US ally. The lesson was crystal clear. American commitments have an expiration date. Which brings us to what might be Mearsheimer's most chilling warning of all. It's called the psychological trap. He says the most dangerous moment in history is when a great power feels its influence slipping away, but it still has all of its immense military might. It starts to feel cornered, disrespected, and desperate.
Because here's the central truth of realism. Power isn't a permanent fixture. It has to be maintained with discipline and predictability. The moment you start misusing it, when threats replace guarantees, it doesn't just diminish, it decays. And it decays rapidly.
So where does this all lead? Well, realism points to three pretty bleak possibilities. One, a regional war, probably with Iran, that just spirals completely out of control. Two, a slow, managed, and humiliating decline as the world continues to just build around the US. Or three, a sudden shock, like a financial crash or a military blunder that forces a final reckoning. And you'll notice none of those paths restore the old order.
You have to understand, the most dangerous phase of this whole correction, it's not the loud threats and public insults we're seeing now. It's what comes next. It's the cold, quiet, methodical planning that happens when the system decides you're no longer a partner, but a problem to be managed.
And this right here is the deadly cycle Mearsheimer warns about. It's a feedback loop of miscalculation. It starts when a no is seen as disrespect. That feeling of disrespect triggers an escalation to try and reassert dominance. But that escalation just forces everyone else to balance against him even harder, which, in turn, reduces his options. And as the options shrink, the desperation grows, and the whole deadly cycle spins faster and faster.
You know, this is what I think so many people are missing. They're waiting for some formal announcement, some single event to mark the end of an era. But history just doesn't work that way. Power never announces that it's leaving. The world simply moves on. And by the time you look up from all the noise in the headlines, you realize the shift has already happened. It's already gone.
And that really is the core of this entire explainer. The truly chilling part isn't that Donald Trump is being isolated. It's that the global system isn't waiting around for a replacement. It hasn't hit pause. It has already rerouted trade. It has already rerouted security and diplomacy. It has already adapted to a world where Washington is no longer the center.
So that leaves us with one final, haunting question, doesn't it? When we look back on this moment in history, what will we decide was the more important signal? The loud, angry threats made by a great power, or the cold, calculated silence of a world that had already decided to move on?